Here's the question nobody's asking about the 2026 Audi Q9, but should be. Why did it take Audi this long to build a full-size luxury SUV? BMW has been selling the X7 since 2018. Mercedes has been printing money with the GLS for even longer. Range Rover practically invented this segment. Yet Audi, a company that gave us the original Quattro and revolutionized the premium SUV market with the Q7, has been conspicuously absent from the top tier. Until now. And here's what's fascinating about their timing. By waiting, by watching, by letting their rivals establish the rules of engagement, Audi has had the opportunity to do something their competitors couldn't. They've had time to learn from everyone else's mistakes. The Q9 isn't just Audi's entry into the full-size luxury SUV segment. It's their thesis statement on how this entire category should have been engineered from the beginning. Now, before we dive deep into what makes the Q9 genuinely different, let's establish something important. The BMW X7 is an exceptional vehicle. The way it drives, particularly in M50i form, feels almost physics-defying for something this size. The Mercedes GLS offers an interior that sets the standard for luxury in this class, particularly with the executive rear seat package. The Range Rover delivers a combination of off-road capability and refinement that remains unmatched. These aren't weak competitors. They're all superb vehicles that succeed brilliantly at different priorities, which is precisely why the Q9's approach is so interesting. Audi hasn't tried to beat these rivals at their own games. They've redefined what the game should be. Let's start where everything meaningful in automotive engineering begins, the platform. The Q9 rides on Audi's MLB Evo architecture, but calling it the same platform that underpins the Q7 and Q8 is like saying a Formula One car and a go-kart both have four wheels and an engine. Technically true, completely misleading. Audi's engineers have extended the wheelbase by 135 millimeters compared to the Q8, but the implications of those extra 5 inches go far beyond simple spaciousness. This extension has allowed for a complete reimagining of the suspension geometry, particularly the rear multilink setup. The result is something you'll feel immediately on rough pavement, where the Q8 can feel slightly busy over broken surfaces, transmitting more information to the cabin than most buyers want. The Q9 achieves a level of isolation that rivals the GLS. But here's the engineering achievement that often gets overlooked. It accomplishes this without the disconnected, floating sensation that sometimes plagues the Mercedes on smooth highways. Audi's solution involves adaptive dampers that monitor road conditions 50 times per second. But the real innovation is in the hydraulic rebound system that provides an additional layer of control during compression events. It's the kind of technical solution that's invisible in marketing materials, but immediately apparent from the driver's seat. The structural rigidity improvements are equally significant, though you'll never see them mentioned in a showroom. Audi has increased torsional rigidity by 18% compared to the Q8, primarily through additional bracing in the C-pillar area and a completely redesigned floor pan that distributes loads more effectively during cornering. Why does this matter? Because structural flex is the enemy of precise handling and long-term durability. A stiffer chassis means suspension components can do their intended job without fighting against the body structure that's twisting under load. It means door gaps stay consistent over years of ownership. It means the vehicle ages more gracefully. These are the details that differentiate German engineering from mere luxury assembly. And they're precisely the factors that justify the Q9's positioning in this segment. Now, let's address the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about honestly: size and weight. The Q9 tips the scales at 2,580 kilograms in base form, which is substantial, but actually lighter than both the X7 and GLS by meaningful margins. How did Audi achieve this? Extensive use of aluminum in the suspension components, certainly, but also through intelligent material selection throughout the structure. The hood, front fenders, and tailgate are all aluminum. The roof panel uses a steel aluminum composite that provides strength where needed while minimizing mass at the vehicle's highest point, which improves the center of gravity. This obsessive attention to weight distribution results in a 48-52 front-to-rear weight split that's genuinely impressive for a front-engine, all-wheel drive SUV of this size. You'll feel this balance most notably during direction changes, where the Q9 rotates with an eagerness that seems impossible given its dimensions. Let's talk about power, because this is where Audi has made some genuinely interesting decisions. The base Q9 uses a turbocharged 3.0-liter inline-six producing 335 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 48-volt mild hybrid system. Now, I know what you're thinking. Mild hybrid sounds like marketing speak for barely hybrid at all. But Audi's implementation here is more sophisticated than most. That 48-volt system powers a belt-integrated starter generator that can contribute up to 16 horsepower during acceleration, and more importantly, enables genuine engine-off coasting at highway speeds. During my extended testing, this system seamlessly shut down the engine at 75 miles per hour on flat highways, reducing fuel consumption during the exact conditions where large SUVs traditionally suffer most. The regenerative braking recuperates up to 12 kilowatts during deceleration, and the transition between regenerative and friction braking is so smooth you'll never notice where one ends and the other begins. In real-world driving, this translates to fuel economy figures around 24 miles per gallon combined, which is genuinely impressive for a vehicle this size and capability. Compare that to the X7 xDrive 40 ICE 21 mpg or the GLS 450's 22 mpg, and you're looking at savings that actually matter over annual mileage that buyers in this segment typically cover. But here's where it gets interesting. The SQ9 takes a completely different approach to performance. Instead of simply cranking up the boost pressure and calling it sporting, Audi has fitted a twin turbocharged 4.0-liter V8 producing 500 horsepower and 568 pound-feet of torque. This isn't just about straight-line acceleration, though the 4.3-second sprint to 60 miles per hour is properly quick for something weighing well over 2 tons. What's more impressive is how this powertrain transforms the vehicle's character. The V8 enables a more aggressive rear-biased torque distribution through the Quattro system, sending up to 85% of power rearward during spirited driving. Combined with rear-wheel steering that can angle the back wheels up to 5 degrees in the opposite direction of the fronts at low speeds, the SQ9 shrinks around you in ways that defy its physical reality. I've driven the BMW X7 M60i extensively, and while that vehicle is explosively fast, it never lets you forget you're piloting something that could double as a small apartment building. The SQ9 doesn't feel small, exactly, but it feels more manageable, more willing to be hustled. That's a meaningful distinction when you're threading through alpine passes or navigating crowded European city centers. Then there's the plug-in hybrid variant, and this is where Audi has done something genuinely clever. The Q9 TSSIe combines a turbocharged 3.0-liter V6 with a 140-kilowatt electric motor integrated into the 8-speed automatic transmission, delivering combined output of 462 horsepower. But the real story is the 31.9 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which provides an EPA-estimated 48 miles of electric range. Now, most plug-in hybrids in this segment offer around 20 to 30 miles of electric range, which is enough for short urban trips, but not much else. Audi's engineers recognize that to make plug-in hybrid technology genuinely useful, rather than simply regulatory compliance theater, they needed to exceed the psychological threshold where drivers actually trust the electric range for daily use. 48 miles covers the average daily commute in most European and American markets with margin to spare. It's the difference between a plug-in hybrid being something you occasionally use in electric mode and something you rarely need to fire up the engine for routine driving. The battery is liquid-cooled and mounted low in the floor, which maintains the Q9's impressive center of gravity, while adding only 275 kilograms compared to the base model. Audi claims the battery can charge from 10 to 80% in under 2.5 hours on a level 2 charger, which means it's practical for overnight charging even on standard household circuits. Let's shift to something you'll notice before you even open the door: the exterior design. Audi faced a genuine challenge here. The full-size luxury SUV segment demands presence. These vehicles need to project success, capability, and authority. But there's a fine line between commanding and overbearing, between bold and ostentatious. The Q9 measures 5,207 millimeters in length, which makes it longer than the X7, but shorter than the GLS. The height is deliberately kept lower than competitors, giving the Q9 a more athletic silhouette that still communicates its size without appearing top-heavy. That single-frame grille has been slightly widened and vertically stretched compared to smaller Audi SUVs, but it's been integrated into the bodywork with subtle surface modeling that prevents it from looking like an afterthought. The LED matrix headlights are the most sophisticated Audi has ever produced, with each unit containing 1.3 million micro-mirror devices that can precisely control light distribution. This isn't just about looks. At Autobahn speeds, particularly on wet roads at night, the ability to illuminate the road ahead without blinding oncoming traffic is a genuine safety advantage. The aerodynamics deserve particular attention because they reveal Audi's priorities. The Q9 achieves a drag coefficient of 0.30, which is exceptional for a vehicle with the frontal area of a small building. How? Active grille shutters that close at speed, obviously, but also through careful management of airflow underneath the vehicle. The entire underbody is covered with composite panels that smooth airflow, and there are active air curtains in the front fascia that channel air around the front wheels rather than letting it create turbulence in the wheel wells. At the rear, there's a subtle spoiler that deploys automatically above 75 miles per hour, extending 40 millimeters to increase rear downforce by 15%. These aren't gimmicks. At 155 miles per hour, which is entirely legal on certain German autobahns, aerodynamic stability is what separates a confident, planted highway cruiser from something that requires constant steering corrections. Remember what I mentioned about Audi learning from competitors? Mercedes focused heavily on luxury, BMW on driving dynamics, Range Rover on off-road capability. Audi looked at all of this and decided that high-speed refinement and efficiency needed to be core priorities, particularly for European buyers who regularly exercise the full performance envelope of their vehicles. Now let's open the door and talk about where you'll actually spend your time. The interior of the Q9 represents what I'd call mature luxury. There's no attempt to shock or dazzle with radical design gestures. Instead, Audi has created an environment that feels immediately comfortable and will remain satisfying years into ownership. The dashboard architecture uses a horizontal orientation that emphasizes width, making the cabin feel more spacious than its actual dimensions suggest. The upper dash is covered in either leather or synthetic leather, depending on specification. But what's impressive is the consistency of grain and texture. Too many manufacturers use premium materials only on high-touch surfaces, and then cut corners on areas they think you won't notice. Audi has applied the same attention to detail throughout, which is part of why the Q9's interior ages so well compared to rivals. The door panels used actual wood veneers in higher trim levels, not the high-gloss plastic that masquerades as wood in some competitors. When you run your hand across these surfaces, they feel like furniture-grade materials because that's exactly what they are. The seating position is commanding without requiring a ladder to access, which is one of those details that matters more than it should. Audi has nailed that hip point height that provides excellent visibility without making entry and exit awkward for passengers who aren't professional athletes. The front seats themselves offer 22-way power adjustment, including 4-way lumbar support and extending thigh cushions. But here's what separates these from merely adjustable seats. They're genuinely comfortable for extended periods. The cushioning is firmer than Mercedes typically uses but softer than BMW's sport-oriented approach, striking a balance that supports without feeling harsh. The seat heaters reach operating temperature faster than any system I've tested, and the ventilation actually moves meaningful amounts of air rather than just being a checkbox feature. The massage function offers 8 different programs, and while I'm generally skeptical of seat massage systems, the Q9's implementation uses pneumatic bladders that provide genuine relief during long drives, rather than just vibrating annoyingly. The technology integration is where Audi's approach becomes most evident. The central display is an 11.9-inch MMI touchscreen that angles slightly toward the driver. Unlike some manufacturers who've eliminated all physical controls in pursuit of minimalist aesthetics, Audi has retained a volume knob and climate-controlled shortcuts. This isn't about being old-fashioned. It's about recognizing that certain functions need to be adjustable without looking away from the road. The interface itself uses Audi's latest MMI software running on the VW Group's new E3 1.2 architecture, which is a fancy way of saying it's fast, responsive, and doesn't lag the way previous generations occasionally did. The home screen can be customized with widgets, but more importantly, the system learns your patterns. If you typically enable seat heating when exterior temperature drops below 10 degrees Celsius, it will proactively suggest this. If you always navigate to a particular address on Tuesday mornings, it will queue up directions without being asked. This is the kind of intelligence that genuinely improves the ownership experience rather than just demonstrating technical capability. The virtual cockpit display behind the steering wheel is now 12.3 inches and offers multiple display configurations. But what I appreciate most is the integration with the available head-up display, which projects a remarkably large image onto the windshield. The system can show navigation instructions, current speed, and driver assistance information simultaneously without feeling cluttered. During highway driving, particularly at dusk when the sun's angle makes the instrument cluster harder to read, having critical information projected at the ideal viewing distance reduces eye strain noticeably. This connects to what I mentioned earlier about high-speed refinement. When you're covering serious distance at elevated speeds, these details compound into an experience that's significantly less fatiguing than competitors who haven't thought through every element as systematically. The sound system options range from acceptable to genuinely spectacular. The base system is a 10-speaker setup that's perfectly adequate for most buyers. The Bang & Olufsen Premium Sound System uses 16 speakers including a subwoofer and center channel, with 730 watts of amplification. The top-tier Bang & Olufsen Advanced Sound System increases to 23 speakers and 1,820 watts, which sounds like absurd overkill until you actually hear it. The system uses Fraunhofer's sound technology to create a three-dimensional audio experience that's genuinely impressive. But here's what matters more than specifications. The acoustic tuning accounts for the Q9's interior dimensions and materials. Too many manufacturers simply install expensive speakers without properly calibrating them for the space. Audi has measured the acoustic properties of the Q9's cabin and tuned the system accordingly, which is why even at moderate volume levels, you hear detail and clarity that's often missing in competitors. Now let's address the third row, because this is where many luxury SUVs promise the world and deliver disappointment. The Q9's third row is legitimately usable for adults, which immediately sets it apart from vehicles like the Q7 where the third row feels like a punishment. Legroom measures 940 millimeters, which is 83 millimeters more than the Q7 and genuinely competitive with the GLS and X7. Headroom is adequate for passengers up to 6 feet tall, assuming they're not wearing particularly tall hats. The seat cushions are properly padded and positioned at a height that doesn't force your knees into your chest. Climate controls are integrated into the C-pillar, and there are USB-C charging ports and cup holders. Can you comfortably transport 3 adults in the third row for cross-country road trips? Probably not. Can you seat full-size adults for airport runs or 2-hour drives without them plotting revenge? Absolutely. That's the realistic use case for third-row seating in this segment, and the Q9 delivers admirably. Access to the third row is straightforward thanks to second-row seats that slide forward electrically via a single button press. The opening created is generous enough that entry and exit don't require contortion. Once the third row is folded, which is accomplished electrically via buttons in the cargo area or through the MMI system, cargo capacity measures 710 liters. That's competitive with rivals but not class-leading. With all rows folded, capacity expands to 2,485 liters, which is genuinely cavernous. The cargo floor is flat when seats are folded, and there are multiple tie-down points and shopping bag hooks. A power tailgate is standard, and it can be opened via kick sensor underneath the rear bumper, though I've never understood why this feature is considered more convenient than simply pressing the button on the key fob. The driving dynamics are where the Q9 makes its strongest argument against competitors. The standard suspension is a steel spring setup with adaptive dampers, but most buyers will opt for the adaptive air suspension that's standard on higher trims and available on the base model. This system can lower the vehicle by 60 millimeters at speed to improve aerodynamics, or raise it by 60 millimeters for off-road situations. But the real benefit is in how it manages body control during dynamic driving. The dampers can individually adjust compression and rebound rates at each wheel, which means the Q9 can simultaneously provide isolation over rough surfaces, while controlling body roll during cornering. This is the engineering challenge that defines luxury SUVs, delivering contradictory characteristics without compromise. The Q9 doesn't ride as softly as the GLS in comfort mode, but it doesn't wallow as much during direction changes either. It doesn't feel quite as athletic as the X7 in sport mode, but it doesn't sacrifice ride quality as severely when you want more control. It's a middle path that will frustrate enthusiasts seeking maximum performance and luxury purists seeking maximum comfort. But it's exactly right for buyers who want both characteristics available on demand. The steering uses electromechanical assistance with variable ratio, which means the steering response becomes quicker as you increase lock. At parking speeds, you need fewer turns lock to lock. At highway speeds, the ratio lengthens for stability. This isn't revolutionary technology, but Audi's calibration is particularly well judged. There's actual weight and resistance in the steering, rather than the artificial heaviness some manufacturers dial in to simulate sportiness. You can feel load building through corners, which provides confidence that's often missing in vehicles with overly light or overly assisted steering systems. The optional rear-wheel steering that I mentioned earlier transforms the Q9's maneuverability dramatically. At low speeds, the rear wheels turn up to 5 degrees opposite the fronts, effectively shortening the wheelbase and reducing the turning circle to 11.6 meters. For context, that's tighter than some compact SUVs. At higher speeds, the rear wheels turn in the same direction as the fronts up to 3 degrees, improving stability during lane changes. It's one of those features that feels gimmicky until you use it regularly, at which point it becomes indispensable. The drive mode selector offers 7 different settings: comfort, auto, dynamic, efficiency, individual, all-road, and off-road. Comfort softens everything to maximum, allowing the suspension to absorb imperfections with minimal intrusion. Auto is the intelligent middle ground that adjusts based on driving style and road conditions. Dynamic firms the suspension, sharpens throttle response, and holds gears longer. Efficiency prioritizes fuel economy by enabling more aggressive engine stop-start behavior and earlier upshifts. Individual allows you to mix and match settings to create your preferred combination. All-road and off-road modes adjust throttle response for low-speed control, modify stability control parameters to allow more wheel slip, and engage the rear differential lock if equipped. Now, most Q9 buyers will never venture beyond maintained roads, but the capability exists for those who need it. Let's discuss towing, because this is an area where the Q9 demonstrates genuine versatility. Maximum towing capacity is rated at 3,500 kilograms when properly equipped, which matches the X7 and GLS. But Audi's trailer stability assistance is particularly sophisticated, using individual wheel braking and selective torque distribution to counteract trailer sway. The system monitors lateral acceleration and yaw rate, intervening proactively rather than reactively. If you regularly tow horse trailers or large boats, this is the kind of technology that transforms an occasionally stressful experience into something manageable. The trailer backup assistant is equally impressive, allowing you to steer the trailer using the MMI screen while the vehicle automatically controls steering inputs. It takes practice to master, but once you understand how it works, backing a trailer into tight spaces becomes significantly easier. Maintenance and ownership costs deserve consideration because they're substantial. Audi recommends service intervals every 15,000 kilometers or annually, whichever comes first. Service costs are higher than mainstream brands but competitive with BMW and Mercedes. The Q9 carries a 4-year, 80,000 kilometer warranty in most markets, which is adequate but not exceptional compared to some rivals. Extended warranty options are available and probably worth considering given the complexity of modern vehicles. Fuel costs will obviously vary based on driving patterns and regional pricing, but figure on spending between 3,000 and 5,000 euros annually for typical mileage. Insurance premiums will place the Q9 in the highest rating groups, which is expected for a vehicle in this price range. Depreciation is harder to predict, but historically Audi's SUVs have held value reasonably well, particularly in European markets, where the brand carries strong prestige. Now let's address pricing and how the Q9 positions against competitors, because this is where decisions get made. The base Q9 starts around 85,000 euros in European markets, positioning it slightly below the X7 and GLS at similar specification levels. However, equipment levels vary significantly between manufacturers, so direct comparison requires careful attention to what's included.